Hello, I'm Gemma and this is Non-Fic Books, and today I have my January and February wrap up, so I'm going to crack on. The first book I read in January was David Nokes' biography of Jane Austen, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because it is going to go into my Austen August, but it was pretty enjoyable to read. Even though it's really big, I absolutely flew through it in a couple of days because it does read a lot like a work of fiction. And therein lies some of the issues which I will discuss in August. The next one was Philip Marston's Rising Ground, A Search for the Spirit of Place. I have a review video about this, so I will pop it down below. But overall, it was really good. It went a bit wobbly in the middle where it really sort of lost the sort of search for the spirit of place, so it lost its focus a little bit. But overall, I still highly recommend this, and his writing is lovely. Then we have a bit of a lull, and I have a few books that I will discuss in a wee bit, which are the books that I'm sort of halfway through reading. The next one that I finished was Last Curtsey by Fiona MacCarthy, and this is the end of the Debutantes. This is all looking at the season in 1958, and there will be a review video coming up for that, the next video I do in a few days' time. And this is a really, really interesting book. Again, a bit like The Spirit of Place. It loses itself a little bit, and it would have been better with a more strict focus throughout, but a really interesting topic, and Fiona MacCarthy was one of the Debs in 1958, so there was an interesting point of view for this to be looked at. So overall, I did really enjoy it, even though it wasn't perfect. The next one is totally not my normal sort of thing, and is absolutely fabulous. The Trouble with Women. I've done a review of this, so again I'll pop it down below. This is absolutely hilarious. It's by Jackie Fleming, and it's looking at women throughout history, and it is just illustrations with bits of writing, and it is absolutely fabulous and hilarious, and watch my video because it's just amazing, and you need to go out and buy this because it's brilliant. The next book I don't have with me because I read it on my phone, and that is the Gender Police, A Diary, and I will put my review video down below. But overall, this is a really interesting look based on a couple's account of raising a boy and a girl, and their Twitter feed where they were discussing how the children were treated differently right from the off. Then the last book that I finished in February was Jilly Cooper's Class. Yes, this is the Jilly Cooper from Riders and Jump and all of those absolutely wonderfully delicious books. And this was written in 1979, I believe, originally, but redone in the 80s, and this is the 80s version. And this is looking at the British class system. It's so funny, it's so politically incorrect, but just unfortunately it didn't need to be quite as long as it did. It was, because it just sort of lost it a little bit. I knew exactly where she was going with it by the end, so I knew what she'd say about certain topics, because she starts off from like birth through raising kids to marriage and ending up with death and funerals. If you're easily offended, don't read this book. If you're interested in the class system, possibly do. It was great fun. I love Jilly Cooper's writing, so that was really enjoyable, and her wicked sense of humour, which definitely came out in this book. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. If it sounds like your thing, read it, but if you don't, you're not going to miss out on anything too major if you don't read it. Well, it's Jilly Cooper, so it's never a bad thing. The next three are books, non-fiction books, that I have started to read, but haven't quite finished yet. The first one is Max Adams' The King in the North, which is all about Oswald of Northumbria, and I picked this up in Northumberland because I like picking up a book about the place that I'm visiting on holiday, and so I picked this up in Lindisfarne, which is the Holy Island, which is absolutely amazing, so do go and check it out. And yeah, so far so good. I'll hopefully finish this soon, but I may not read it this next month, and I'll tell you why shortly. And In Her Element, I am most of the way through, but the essays in this are so beautiful that I don't want to read too many of them at once, because I think that sort of dilutes them a little bit. Oh, yeah, my dog's going off. I'm really sorry, there's probably somebody at the door. And that's edited by Jane MacFarlane, and it's all about women in the landscape, and it is absolutely beautiful, and I think this may be one of the books that sneaks into my favourites of 2016 because it's absolutely breathtaking. I'll give you an update when I finished it. And then the last one is Ladies of the Grand Tour by Dolan. This is really good so far, but I've just put it down and ended up being distracted. But March is Women's History Month, so I will be reading entirely about women's history. And I was going to stick to just by women authors, but as I'm part of the way through, I might make an exception for this one as well. So I will hope to finish this in March, because it's not all that long. I'm coming up on a third of the way through anyway, so I should be able to finish this, and it's really interesting, and yeah, it's about women on the Grand Tour, shockingly. So those are all the non-fiction books that I read. I have a couple of fiction books that I read. The first one was the one that I said I was going to in my hunt for good fiction, and this is Baronness Orczy's The Scarlet Pimpernel. It was wonderful. It's such a romp. If you like anything like The Legend of Zenda or whatever it is called, Robin Hood, any good sort of rompy, actiony thing, read this book. It's fantastic. And then the next one that I read was, and the reason it's got a bookmark in is because I'm actually reading this out loud to my husband, but I read the first 3 of the Cadfael books. I've read some of the Cadfael books before, but I'm starting from the beginning and working my way through. I've got 7 of these, so I've got 21 novels, which I believe is all of them, and I'm working my way through start to finish, and they're wonderful. If you don't know about Cadfael, he's a monk in the medieval period who used to be a knight, or well, at least a foot soldier, and was on the Crusades, and he's now in his old age, he's like 40, is at the monastery, and there are murders and mysteries and all sorts of wonderful goodness for him to solve. And Ellis was a fabulous writer. She's absolutely brilliant, so if you haven't read Cadfael, again, have a look. And as I said, every month I'm trying to read at least one really good bit of fiction because I focus on non-fiction, occasionally slip into the habit of reading a bit trashy fiction just because I want something really light. So I'm making an effort, and because it's Women's History Month, I've decided to pick up this wonderful tome, The Lifted Veil, Women's 19th Century Stories. And this is another beautiful edition from Folio. I'm just going to read you some of the stories that are in here. We've got Jane Austen's The Watsons, Mary Shelley's Maurice, Charlotte Bronte's The Green Dwarf, Elizabeth Gaskell, The Grey Woman, Louisa May Alcott, A Whisper in the Dark, George Eliot, The Lifted Veil, Kate Chopin, Pair of Silk Stockings, Mary Elizabeth Braddon, The Fatal Marriage, Charlotte Perkins Gilman, The Yellow Wallpaper, Olive Schreiner, The Buddhist Priest's Wife, Edith Wharton's Soul Belate, and Charlotte Mew, The China Bowl. So, I don't know whether I'll get the whole thing finished, but I at least want to read some of these, and that'll be my, hopefully, really good bit of fiction for March to tie in with women's history. So those are the books that I read in January and February. If you've got any comments or questions, leave them down below. If I have review videos, I'll leave them down below as well. And any questions, let me know. I'll see you in a video soon. Bye!